All right, we're on to number 15 on the River Gran among the Quadi from our friend Marcus here. And this one's very short. It's only, I think, 2 or 3 sentences. So let's get to it. And the very first part is a quote. "Everything is just an impression," end quote, by Monimus the Cynic. And then now comes in Marcus Aurelius speaking. And the response is obvious enough, but the point is a useful one if you take it for what it's worth. And that's it. And so this is speaking again, as we've done a couple times now, just to the roots of Stoic philosophy and rational emotive behavior therapy. Everything is ultimately the impression and the belief that you have about that event. And that can be a hard truth to accept because it takes a lot of personal responsibility onto oneself. Even and especially, it's a lot easier done for good things and happy things, that like birthday parties and weddings and summer vacations and such. It's great to take responsibility for those and how we're feeling, and I'm feeling so happy because I put in the work to organize this event and to gather my friends around and went to the store to get the nice food. I'm happy to be responsible for that. But when we get into things like the death of a loved one, a tragic illness or debilitation, the loss of a good, and maybe the dissolution of a friendship, the loss of a really promising job, a downgrade in life, a setback that has you going from maybe one standard of living down the rung. People really like going up the rung, not so much down the rung. Taking some responsibility for that, and a fair bit of it onto your onus of yourself. It can be very aggravating, insulting. A lot of people don't like that idea, but as it is in Stoic philosophy, and there's more than one way to live a life. But the way that I try and view things personally, and the way that I try and help my clients see through rational emotive behavior therapy, and the Stoics would have seen it, is that everything is ultimately an impression. It's your beliefs on an event. And again, when we run into trouble with this, or like the kind of friction is often on negative events, and we'll use the death of a loved one. That's often one of the hardest things a person has to deal with throughout their lives, often several times. Now, so how a loved one might die and pass away, and you're thinking, how can that be good, or why is that not bad? And it's not that it has to be a good thing. Everything is neutral, and it's our values and beliefs that are placed on it that then exacerbate a natural, normal, and neutral part of nature and life into that is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. That is a terrible thing that's happened to me and my family. And while all of us can rationally recognize that none of us get to live forever and everybody has a time, we're mammals, and we're extremely social, and we have deep bonds and loving bonds, and to expect somebody to see the death of a loved one as neutral right off the bat, when it's fresh, I think it would take quite the Stoic to do that, and that's not what I try and help my clients be instilled on them in any way, but more so that there's a grieving process. and with time, as time kind of helps distance you from that event, and has its own way of healing. Some people go down a path of, thinking of fond memories, and integrating the best aspects of that person into their life. When they hold the door open for somebody at the grocery store, they might think of their father, or when they lean down to hug their child at bed at night, they might think of their mother, and find these little ways in their life over time where they would shift from total remorse and grief and sadness every time they think of their loved one passed, and begin to slowly shift. And for some people, the pace is different. Everybody's different in this regard, but some might take months, others years, some weeks. Weeks would strike me as quite fast, but you, as an individual, you can decide, and the impression you want on life, and your beliefs about that event can have you integrating the best parts of that person, and moving forward, and then eventually coming to a place where when you reach down and hug your kid, because you used to love it when your mom gave you a big hug, that you feel happiness, where now you can appreciate that hug that much more. Maybe a lot more than that kid really is appreciating it. And so over time, one can take that route. And of course, there's going to be days where it's sadness, but this is all about Stoicism, and rational motive behavior therapy is all about healthy negative emotions as opposed to negative, or rather unhealthy negative emotions. And so that's someone who's having some healthy negative emotions. They're taking that sadness, hugging their kid extra tight, making sure to see them at their sports games, or taking that friend out for lunch more often than not. Whereas on the flip side, if someone believes that perhaps this loved one died and it was medical negligence or something, and they then get so angry at every physician they see for the next 10 or 20 years of their life, because they're associating the whole medical field with dishonesty or incompetence, and they're creating quite a hassle for not only themselves and getting all riled up and angry and agitated every time they have any type of medical type of appointment, but then they're also draining the medical practitioners' time and energy as well, like more so than a usual client perhaps. Then that doesn't sound like a very productive or healthy way to cope with that loss. It's evidenced by the fact that whose quality of life do you think is better? The person who can accept that, and again, it's not instantaneous, but who can accept perhaps that the medical system messed up. They should have caught it on that X-ray or that MRI, but they didn't, and now I'm gonna give my kid an extra hug. Or is it the person who lambasts and lives in fear and then doesn't go to medical appointments as often as they should, or as would maybe be preferred or recommended, and then they get all agitated when they are there, and who do you think has a better quality of life? And it's Mark, these words from 2,000 years ago sum it up perfectly. To that quote, everything is just an impression. And the response is obvious enough. So what do you think? And which impression, like, if the same event happened, but you can take it two ways, then it's your impression and your beliefs about the situation that are then driving certain emotional and behavioral outcomes and social outcomes and personal and all that. So the response is obvious enough. But, you know, Stoic philosophy, rational emotive behavior therapy, these things, they make some bold claims that probably irk some people. But I would like to just say that there's more than one way to live a life, just as there's more than one way to skin a cat. And for some people, this is going to be really resonating and healing and helpful. And before you knock it, really just look at the proof that may be in the metaphorical pudding. Try out a therapist that uses rational emotive behavior therapy, or look into Stoic philosophy for yourself, and watch these videos, read this book, and then apply it to your own life and see if you get a result, and give it a good go. Give it a go for at least a good couple months, and on several different issues, big or small, and just see what happens. I think that will end the video there. Thank you.